Hello and welcome to the Thought Tapestry, where we are weaving history and unraveling history's mysteries. I'm just freestyling it today. But today, my topic is about something I saw online, and I have my co host here, Stephanie, with me.
Hello.
Um, it's something that I saw online, and it struck me as interesting because I've never heard of this man, nor have I ever heard of this government initiative ever before in my life. I became interested and I said, this might be a good subject for us to talk about on our podcast because it is about history. So the name of this episode is McNamara's Morons, the Vietnam War's Forgotten Soldiers.
Ooh, okay.
And you ready? You ready for
I'm
this?
ready. Hit me. Tell me about them.
All right. So back in the day, back in the 60s, around 1966, there was a project called Project 100,000. The policy initiated by Defense Secretary Robert McNamara in 1966 to recruit men who failed the military standard IQ and physical requirements. This disproportionately affected African Americans and poor communities. They were not letting them come into the military when they really needed people. They needed boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So this Project 100,000 came to pass. During the Cold War and the Vietnam escalation and draft resistance, because people didn't want to go, was like, no, we don't want to go to war. So Project 100,000's goal was to lower the enlistment standards, which they probably promised these people job training. They promised them social mobility, right? They were like, you come in the military, we'll take care of you, we'll get you going. We'll pay you, we'll feed you, clothe you, we'll do all the things. It'll be an adventure. So these men were placed in the most dangerous combat zones, and they did not even train these men to do this task that they were tasked to do. So over 40% of these recruits were Black or Latino. So there was a great racial disparity in this Project 100,000. So it also, back in these days, the military was much more so segregated, right? They were still like, this is the Black troop, this is the white troops. They weren't kind of mixing them together, and they had a lot of poor training. They just didn't train these guys, and they did not have the support that the other troops had, like the white troops. They didn't have any of that.
You know what's
So,
weird? Not to
mhm.
interject, but
No, girl.
I find it strange because, and in our previous podcast, you'll hear me talk about this a little bit, but I find it strange because it's like, do you want to win or don't you? Like, how are you going to say this is the team, but only equip the freaking starters with the playbook? Everyone else is just going to have to wing it. That to me does not necessarily equate to success. Why?
Exactly.
This is just how they like. What the fuck?
In my industry, I'm a training coordinator, so this is very important thing. You must train, because if you don't train them, they don't know what to do. They don't know what pitfalls that may come. They don't know how. They won't have the wherewithal to navigate. And apparently, these people didn't really even have the capacity to think like that.
To
You know
be
what I
there in the
mean?
first place. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So
They
you
should have
definitely
even.
needed to help them in some way, at least be,
Trained them.
yeah, to train them at the very least so that they understood what the hell was going on.
Hmm. So going back to like the African American experience with this, they had a lot of veterans that testified, and they gave their firsthand account of how Black veterans were a part of the Project 100,000. They were a part of this project, so they can all recount like how they had to struggle with poor training and the high casualty rate. And the NAACP and the civil rights leaders did get involved for their opposition of the Vietnam War, and how they criticized the policy as the war on the poor. So going forward, there was a huge component to this psychological and social aftermath, the high death rate, and PTSD. because they did experience PTSD back in those days, even though they didn't maybe talk about it.
I
They
agree.
would
Wait,
just
so
say
were
they were
did
already
they?
doomed.
That sucks. That's so true. Like they were just, or they whatever they classified them as something and wrote them off, which is like crazy. But so did these the 100,000 actually do combat? Like were they actually participating in war?
Oh yes. And they just needed those people, and they just, they lowered they just said we need to send more troops. And this is how they were able to do that.
So did a lot of them die?
Oh
Because that to
yes.
me means, and this is going to sound macabre AF, but were did they just needed bodies to sacrifice so that
Yeah.
what? Because we didn't even win the fucking Vietnam War.
We did
Do you know what I
not.
mean?
We
We
did
came home
not.
disgraced as fuck. So like, what was the point? Ugh,
They
racism
yeah. Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Yeah. They it was really really bad. So, they did die in high numbers and record numbers. Um it just wasn't a good look. They shouldn't
Yeah,
have never even been sent over there, to be honest.
yeah,
They would have did better off living their lives out
yeah.
however poor they
Contributing to
were.
society.
And
Yeah,
to their
in a
and being
different
there for
way.
their families.
Yeah,
So yeah, good. So going forward from, they had the post-traumatic stress and the struggles after the war. They did not get the support from the VA that they were promised. Veterans were often neglected or denied benefits to heroin,
yes, that happened. That
opiates.
happened a lot
Yeah,
actually.
it really
Yeah,
did. It really did. And so some of the veterans turned to substance abuse as a coping mechanism when they came back, because they thought they were going to be these heroes and they were going to be, a valuable part of society, and it just wasn't so. It shaped the future military recruitment. The military learned from the backlash. They actually did learn something this time. Modern recruiting now targets economically vulnerable communities through different means, education benefits, and enlistment bonuses. So they kind of give them a little bit more incentive to join. The concept of poverty draft, how financial hardship still pushes people of color. They do still do it, but
hmm
they just don't do it on the scale that they did it back in the day. So, just overall, this was a very interesting topic, because I figured out, like, there has to be something that we learned. And even though back in the day we did learn that there was a lot of people that went into the military. I know my dad was one of the people that went into the Air Force for the Vietnam War. He was unfortunately discharged because of some ailment that he got over there, and he wasn't able to continue his service. But he did speak a lot about how, some of the guys, they were just not up to par. They just
yeah,
were not sharp. They were just kind of like, he said they had some crazy people out there. And even just thinking about that as a young man, seeing that and being able to correlate, like, these people ain't with it. There's
yeah.
something's up with these people. And
So
no.
what was your dad's take on the war? Like, did he think it was justified? And you know what's really for our audience that's listening, we do want to just clarify that we come from a military family. So there are people in our family in all branches. I will probably do some hot takes on the military, but I'm just curious to know, for sake of this conversation, since he's seemingly was serving with some of these people, like what did he think of the war in general?
He said it was the white man's war, you know.
Whoa. Ah, shit. Did he really say that? Uncle
He
Russell?
did.
I can totally hear him say
He
that.
always said that. He's always said that as long as I've been alive.
Oh
He
my
did
gosh.
go as a young man. He did go kind of like because, your grandma raised him. So,
hmm
he had to go and get it. And she had some kind of standard like, okay, Russell, why don't you go to the military, go into the military. So he did get to travel. He did also speak about a lot of the beautiful things that he he
Mm-hmm.
was a part of. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
always talked about Thailand, and that's kind of why I want to go to Thailand, because hearing about it so much from him. But
Mm-hmm.
he did talk about how these guys they weren't very smart
They
guys, and
should
they were
not
just,
have been
it was
there.
like they like literally threw them in there. They
Just
did not want to be there.
picked some people and said,
You
suit the
just
fuck
pick some
up.
people, like
Yeah.
suit them up, boot them up, and get them shipped over to Vietnam to fight this war, which they at that time they didn't even understand what are we fighting for.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure if anybody can't even say today
that's what I was
what the
going to
real.
say. Did we finally figure it
Do we
out?
find
Because
out?
last I heard, we were still a little confusion about
It's
it.
just it's a lot of confusion. It's a lot of
You
confusion.
know what I find to be weird? And I have never understood this. And I don't know. I feel like I love having kind of this platform to just be able to think about the shit that I think about with you because, but Keeks, what I don't understand is how we can be a country that's so pro military,
Mm-hmm.
but so anti service member. Do you know what I mean? Because like, and you know
Yes.
what actually baffles my mind, and I didn't realize this. Shit, I was going to talk about the job that I just had, but I don't. We don't. I don't want people to know us that well. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to
Bingo.
talk about that. But what I will say is, I recently, and because our family is so military centric, I don't think I'd ever thought about this. Like, but the military only makes up, and this is the military, like spouses and wives, the actual service members, vets, etc., only makes up, I think, like 12% of our population.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only 12% of the population
You're
is
right.
associated to the military.
You're
And
right.
our government, who is so pro war and just consistently has been, since our country was founded, has not yet figured out a way to take care of these people in a way that's done well and with respect. Because I mean, the military spouses, they don't get any respect. They're not offered any types of legitimate opportunities. So while their spouses are God knows where in the world holding it down for us, they're out here working as gas station attendants because people don't
Yeah, it's
want
true.
them anywhere else, right?
It's true. It's true.
They
It's
they
true.
don't get the support medically. Like the VA is historically underfunded. Like the
Yes.
fucking VA is historically underfunded. So these people that they know have these mental illnesses and or that acquire mental illness is doing a job that I'm going to go on record saying I would never do. Come
Uh-huh.
home to us and we're like, take some Tylenol and go have a nap. That's like what we give
Yes.
them. And
There,
what's
yeah, like they're like,
nuts,
go have a nap. When you wake
go
up, we'll
go sleep.
promise.
Yeah. And what's crazy is it continues to happen. I mean, literally one of the casualties of some of the mass layoffs that's happening at the federal level in 2025. Actually, I don't even know the numbers. I don't think we'll ever know the numbers because, again, this administration is shady as fuck. But I'm willing to bet that at least 5%, 6% of them are vets or are associated to the military, and they just took a hatchet to them. It's like they never, ever considered this population of the country at all. And you know what's even crazier about that, Kiki, is if we look at the numbers, I'd say of the 12%, probably only I don't know. I'd be curious to see how many of them are like black, right? But the facts are that they don't treat them any differently. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. And these people will still choose something that will directly hurt Black people, knowing that they can get hurt, than just letting that go so that everyone can have something good. And that is so baffling to me. Because we know, and I'm sure your dad would talk about this, that the military, obviously, per your story, just has a real icky history with race.
It does.
It hasn't necessarily gone away. I think some administrations try to make it better, but it's still just one of the things that we haven't worked through. And I think it's because the military is a microcosm of our country at large. Like, I honestly, one of the things
Yes, talk about it. Talk
that
about
just
how it is.
baffles my mind is like, how are we still just so stuck on race and gender?
And gender, girl, just
I find
imagine
it
a
so
military base
boring, though.
is like a little country in itself. And if the big country operates like this, they don't want gay people,
Yep,
trans people, women,
yep.
African American women, because we gotta put us off in
You
a
know, they've
whole
always
different
got it. Yeah,
category. Like
yeah.
so,
Always special little hell for us.
special little hell. But their whole little community is based upon like a hierarchy. So it can get a little icky. And although, being a military spouse myself, and even before I became a military spouse, I literally lived in a community full of military people. And it wasn't good for the women and the children.
Mm-hmm.
These men go away for 6 months, they come back, and a lot of things happen when you're away. And
Yeah,
especially with
a
having small
lot of
children,
things happen. Yeah,
children are all about, you being present, and
yeah,
that's how they kind of bond with you. So once your husband goes away, he doesn't have that time to bond with that child. They come back in the picture, and there's like, why is Timothy not, why is he getting all of this trouble? Why is he not listening to me? Because you're freaking away. So that,
and
it goes without
yeah,
saying. That's the way it's designed. I think there's a reason why they have them go out for 6 months, but some of those things need to change. But do with the military spouses, what they have been doing, they have been kind of making ground with the spouses. I think they put some laws into place, even about time off, and like if you're the only one in your house that is, your other military spouse is working and you're at home with the kids, you are allowed different, time off. And then with, I don't know what the this new thing is gonna be with the military spouses being hired, because back in the day, somebody would say, "Oh, I'm a military spouse," and you could think of them like within a 4 year span, they're probably not going to be here for long,
yeah, yeah.
you know. But they have kind of relaxed those kind of things, so they've been allowing people to work. Because I have a coworker that actually, is a military spouse, and she has a great job, and she's always had jobs everywhere she's worked, and everywhere she's lived, she's worked somewhere. So it does get better. Like some of the things they have given them education. Even she's able to go to school on his GI Bill, whereas back in the past, like if you were a spouse, the military service member was the only person that could use that.
Mm.
Whereas
I do like
now,
to hear that. I do like to hear that. And I
hmm
mean, I, as a progressive, feel like all progress is good progress.
hmm
It does just suck though that it's taken so long.
hmm
And I'm going to say this, and this is going to probably piss a lot of people off. I don't know, maybe not. Um, I believe that if some of this had really been designed by like a woman, it would have been baked in hell a long time ago, and in terms of like output and what this country could look like would be so different. And I just think that about all levels of the government. Do you know what I mean? Like if
absolutely,
we,
I do.
okay, what? I saw this post on TikTok, and it was like, you know what? Let's really talk about it, as you like to say. Because the woman said, it was like one of those memes, and it was like, you know how you have like aha moments? It
Uh-huh.
was like an
Yes.
aha moment. I was literally like, whoa, girl, I think you might have just
Yes.
further developed my freaking
hmm
frontal
hmm
lobe. Okay,
Brought you up a
I'm trying
level.
to,
Yes.
let's see, because I bees in the trap. So let's see
You
if
bees
I
in.
can find
Yes.
it.
Bees in the trap,
Oh,
baby.
here it is. She said, okay, they're like, she's just sitting there drinking a martini, and it's this black woman, and it says, name one thing women created. And the answer is 8 billion people.
Yes. Wow.
How, girl, we
Bang.
are
Pow.
literally
Ka-ching.
birthing nations. How
Mm,
the hell did we end up like this?
exactly.
Do you
Girl,
see what I'm saying?
it can take a woman, because my mom would always say this, and shout out to my mom. Anything you give a woman, she's gonna level it up.
Yep.
She's gonna level it
And
up.
gonna level it the fuck up. Every single thing you touch. Like, we're literally birthing nations. And you guys want to sit here and tell us, have a seat, honey, we got this. I feel like you've had your chance. It's time
Chance
to let the
after
woman
chance.
take over.
Yes.
I mean, and here's the thing, like, what's the worst that could happen? Shit.
There's already been so many things that are atrocious.
I mean,
Stephanie,
Kate,
so
we are in 2025, and our president straight up is talking about literally saying the words world. I can't even say it because it's so ludicrous. But do you know what I'm saying? This motherfucker is saying this shit on national TV.
World
so I'm
War
like,
III.
Yes,
he's saying it out of his mouth.
If that's a possibility with men in charge, like, again, what's the worst that could happen with a woman in charge? It can't be much worse, can it?
Yeah, even the whole little thing with Zelensky being up there sitting between those in the hot seat. I didn't even think that was like appropriate for everybody in the country to witness.
It wasn't.
And
it wasn't
that
appropriate.
is just
It
very
wasn't
telling, like how you
anyone.
treat. You don't treat anybody like that.
But also, hot take incoming. Because if you think about it, I mean, one of the reasons why I feel like we being us, have such high regard for the military is because we know some our families that have served and we have high regard for them, right? I think it's also just that the military, for some reason, and this is the hot take, has always just been something that you do realistically hold in high regard, right? Like, you generally respect what it stands for. But I'm wondering, it's also the place that will take people that aren't mentally capable of being in you know what I mean, battle, and put them in battle. And so then it's also, and because of that, you also get people like this person who will sit in the Oval Office and degrade your ally on TV. And it's like, sir, that's not how this goes. But realistically, if I'm just wondering if it's always kind of been a clown show. And are you the one that said this? No, I heard this on another podcast. One of the things they said that Trump does do is that he has lifted the veil. Because he just shows how absurd things are, right? Like, he's not necessarily, I mean, sometimes he is doing some shit that's really crazy, but the fact of the matter is he gets away with it because he can. Because it's all realistically kind of absurd to begin with. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm wondering, is if we're seeing kind of a house of cards start to fall. Right? Because it's like, you think about these stories in terms of like the 60s and this is what's going on, but not that much has changed in 2025.
It hasn't. And that's kind of why I was so keen on the topic, because it's like, I could just see this being something that they are quite mean. We know they may have said they ended it, but who's to know? Who's to say?
That's true. And I mean, because as we've discussed in a previous podcast, the government be lying. They just lie to us. They lie to us about everything.
Just everything. It didn't even, some things don't even require it to be a lie. It's just like, they just lying, just lie.
True. Like, why did you even tell us that? Like,
why? Why? It wasn't even a part of it on the radar, but now y'all done brought it up. Oh. But don't look there, because
we didn't need to know, right? We didn't need to know. You've done your job of keeping us hella ignorant. We're good. We're gonna just be dumb. Fine. You know what I mean?
So be it.
They are not trustworthy, and I don't know why they don't love us the way that other countries' government loves them. I wonder if that was their way of telling us, "Bitch, start a new session." Anyway,
enough is enough. Y'all saying the right. That's how you know you're doing something right. Technology be like, it's an overload. We haven't heard this treat. It's too hot.
It's too hot. Shit, I don't even know what we were yapping about. We were talking about the feds, and maybe that's really what it was. Maybe they came in and said, y'all need to shut up and redirect.
Too much on my sis. Too much on my sis.
But realistically, I think it's just like, oh, we were kind of talking about how the government be lying to us, and they do. They're not honest with us. And what is so bananas is all of the experiments that they have done. So it's like, are we supposed to just believe that shit has stopped?
I don't think the normal. I mean, there's some people that will. We know these people exist because we know. They will continue to sip on the Kool-Aid. Okay, they'll continue to believe whatever's told to them. They will not do any research other than a www search, which really, I don't know how some people get those fingers and they think they know everything and they done did a couple of keystrokes. No, you need to go read a book, sir. How about reading? How about reading articles? Some real.
It's so
No,
true.
you just.
That okay, and I agree with you because one of the things that I know, because I'm a former journalist, there is a distinct difference between Fox News, the TV show, and what Fox News writes about in the newspaper.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Fox News in the newspaper is almost moderate compared to the alt-right shit we be getting on TV. And that is because we are no longer a reading nation. So they're not getting the balance anymore. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Because they put it out there. Like, I remember telling a coworker, like, no, I don't, because I don't watch any news TV. None. I don't watch any of it. I don't really watch the news to get my TV. I read my news. And I was telling a coworker that, and I was like, yeah, I read Fox News too. And the horror on her face. And I was like, no, you gotta dibble and dabble and know what the hell's going on. Plus, it's actually fucking good journalism. It's crazy to say, but it really is. But you would never know that by the talking heads that are like, dogs taking people out left and right,
rah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get into totally different vibes. So yeah, they definitely like to keep us dumb. I don't know why people don't like to read. What do you think that's about?
Well, as a former person, I mean, and I'm not even going to say I didn't like to read. I just didn't really think I could carve out time on my day to do it. But it's not something, it's like something like now I can't really, because of what I do. I literally read for a living. So that's the thing. So now that I am reading more for a living, I find time that I need to read something outside of just standard operation of procedures. Like I need to read something more human. Like I need to read some articles. I need to read some books. So I think people have a correlation with it missing time. Like they're going to miss out on something. Like they're not going to be able to do anything else if they're sitting here with this book in their hand and like God forbid it be some interesting and then you like just like binging. I feel it like you can binge a book. Straight up binge a book.
Oh, I binge books like crazy. And
I know you do.
My books are now digital, so they go with me. I read
yes, everywhere.
I love it. But I think for me, like books for me, and I think early on they became like a way to escape the real world that I was living in. Do you know what I mean? And so that's probably why they have been part of my life for as long as they have, because they're actually a lifeline for me. So like, and even now when things get so weird, I tell myself, I'm like, F that, I'm going to go read. And then I'm gone. I'm out. I don't know what world y'all are living in. Goodbye. You know?
Yeah, goodbye for now.
So I consider it to be escapism. Anything I'm reading, because I love stories, though. You know what I mean? I'm big in story. I consider myself to be a storyteller. I am a writer,
right?
And so if it's well constructed, I don't care. Like even if it's Fox News, I'm gonna be there with you. Like tell me the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's part of it. Is it like if it gets instilled in you young, then I think you become a lifelong reader. I don't think you, like, even if you didn't, though, I don't think that means you should never read, because reading is so truly, this is going to sound cheesy as fuck, but it's so fundamental. Like you have to be able to process words outside of someone telling you them.
You do. You got to be able to take the context
Mm-hmm.
And you know what too? Like I think you know what reading is that ish because look, when you're reading a book, you literally have to put yourself in that person's shoes. You literally are that person, really. You're hearing them, they're like sitting right beside you, they're your old friend. And then you're kind of learning them, you're getting to understand them, you're getting to know how they think. And you know, the mind is a terrible thing to waste, so girl, when you're reading a book, I think it can be very empowering. And I think some people just they don't understand the power.
Mm.
And I think that's good that they don't, because some people would misuse that. Um and I think that that's another thing. I think about, like, how empowering somebody feels when, just like when you hear these stories about people that like they're 90 years old, they're 90, they got all this time in the on the books, and then they say the only thing that I wish I had learned how to do is read. And then somebody
Mm.
comes to the old folks home and teaches them how to read and maybe even write too, and then they feel like, dang, a
The
life
whole
wasted, you
world is
know?
opened up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's funny that you say that because I was going to say there's some stats floating around on the webs that are saying that 15% of Americans, like I think it's adults actually, are functionally illiterate.
Yeah, and just think about these
15%.
poor souls that they sent over to the war. Like, they probably didn't have couldn't. Some of them probably couldn't even read
Yeah, I'm
or
sure they can.
write.
Well, and that I was actually going to ask that because you know what? Like, you know how we're talking about the government lies to us? I'm wondering, I mean, I'm sure your dad definitely had some firsthand accounts of people that weren't right, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they joined up through this program. That could just be people that were like, I'm here to F something up. I want to see
Oh
death. Like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
yes,
Like,
the gun ho. Mm-hmm.
yes. But I also wonder, like, based on whose, like, assessment were they not high functioning, right? Like, I could totally see our government saying, yeah, just find a bunch of black people, let's call them stupid, let's make them
Okay.
sign up, and then that'll be the bodies at the forefront of all of this, and our men will be safe. Like, you know what I mean? Not to be all conspiratist, but I have, the older I get, I have a really heavy skepticism about everything that our government to this day has done because none of it, if we just aren't in a place that we should be as a high functioning society, all things considered. And I'm like, y'all have been leading the charge for a while. What the hell is going on?
What's really going
What are
on?
y'all up to? Why does it still feel this way? And how did you let Russia into the fucking White House?
And you know what? They try to get us that, like, Mr. Gorbachev, Reaganomics, yo, he's the best.
They tried, dude. That's when we should have known that things were gonna go left, is when they had to start like propping up the presidents. Because before they were just in the White House and we didn't hear about them. But I
Yo,
think we
we did
also
not.
heard about Reagan because he was an actor. So that's
Yes,
once we
a bad
deviated
actor.
from yes. Once we deviated from true politician to Hollywood being involved, then
Hmm.
everything went left. I think, and people that were alive can they co-sign that like the Reagan era was the beginning of the real end for
Yes.
this country. Which didn't Reagan? He actually wasn't he president until like the mid 90s.
I think it was like into the 90s. Let me look it up, girl, because
And
I don't
you know,
know.
we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but that's probably about when the aliens stopped coming around too.
Oh yeah, that's definitely when they stopped.
So
It
you
was
know what I
like,
mean? Mm-hmm.
we don't need to know anymore. We've gotten all the recon. But think about it, Stephanie. Like even Reagan back when he was an actor, um, he was into, I don't know what it was called, but he was in the SAG. He was the president of the SAG,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then he was talking about blacklisting all these commies and whatnot. And
Yes.
he was the one that was getting all that cracking.
Yeah.
So, like I say, people they got their lanes, right? They got their
Yeah.
lane, like they don't deviate. they say this works for me. I'm gonna keep it going, and this is the way they know who I am. Now I'm gonna keep doing the same old BS, the same old
Mm-hmm.
2-step that I know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
They never switch up because it works for them.
Yeah.
And I see that with this other person
Yeah.
in the White House. Like,
Yeah.
they are on the same trajectory. They did not deviate. They did not, they didn't stumble. They didn't fall. They just kept going on the same old stuff. There wasn't anything new that he added when he
Yeah,
started to
it's all the
campaign.
same.
It
All
was
they did
all the same stuff.
was
It was
they
nothing new. If he would have
yeah.
came up with something new, maybe a couple of ears would have perked up and said, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yo, he's
Yeah.
doing something different, y'all. Maybe we should lean in a little bit."
Yeah.
But there was nothing to lean into
And you
because
know
it was
what
the
he
same old
did?
shit.
He just took the 4 years away from office to find a bunch of nerds to create a playbook for him. So now it's formalized in Project 2025. That's exactly what he did. He was just like, listen, we didn't do all the things we wanted to last time. I need you little nerds to figure out how to get me across the finish line this time, and then we can pick up, like you said, right where we left off. And you know what's really telling about that? And this is funny that you say that because I'm rewatching Shameless, which is an excellent show if no one's seen it. And the one there, and it aired from like 2012, I think, until
Uh-huh.
2021. So it was
Yeah.
on during the black man's admin, when
Mm-hmm.
y'all
Mm-hmm.
were still kind of cool with black people, through Trump, through Biden, right? And
Yes.
the things that are happening, and it's based in the city of Chicago, and which is one of those microcosms that we talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can see shit playing out, like ICE raids are happening. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're coming into places, and it's just like we really we're still they really took us back. They said we're doing this again. They really did. Because it's like even media, like from back then, is just showcasing what was going on, and it's like that could literally be today.
That's funny.
But isn't it
But that's
also
how we
like
like it, right? That's how
I don't want
we
to
like it.
live like that. Like
I
it's
know, but girl, that's how the complexity of it. That's how like they say that what is it? There's a quote that says, what is it called, Stephanie? I know you know quotes. Like contempt, something breeds contempt. Shoot.
simplicity. I don't know. I don't know.
It's a word, but anyway, it breeds contempt because that's like you're doing the same thing, and people are like, okay, it's good, let's keep it going. Like, no, but like when you buck, you gotta really be about it, and it doesn't really even take much because I know, like back in the day, Stephanie, you know how what my political stance was. I was very conservative
You were
in
so
my views
conservative.
and
Yeah,
my whole thing. I was like,
you really
no
were.
to this.
I
We don't
loved
want to see
you,
that.
but
We
you were
don't want to
like
go
anti
there.
fucking everything. You were heavy into church. Do you
I
think
was,
moving to no, because you lived in
I
Southern
was
California
here.
at
I
that
was here.
time?
Yeah, yeah.
Damn.
I was
So, what
here.
do you think it was that kind of opened your eyes? Was it just talking to someone as wise as me?
Yes, that was part of it. But you know what really did? Let me tell you. And
Tell
we
me.
we're gonna talk about all things. But
Yes.
it was getting away from the traditional church.
Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah.
When I stopped going to church, because you have to be like, they're telling you, oh, Adam and Eve, this is how it is. Oh, they're telling you no sex before marriage. They're telling you abortion is wrong. They're telling you, and we grew up in the church, so this was just another iteration of it when I was a
Yeah,
grown woman. So I already
yeah,
had these views, but
yeah.
instilled in me. But when I got to be an adult, I was like, okay, I have my own family now. That I have to teach them something. So I'm teaching them stuff from the church,
Wow,
and I
wow.
have to make it like, you have to believe it. You have to. That's one part of faith and believe. You have to
Yeah,
believe it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to be true. And so once we started going to church, I started to see that shit didn't fall apart. The world still was going on. The sun was still shining, and I wasn't going to hell, and I was actually happier,
Mm.
healthier, because girl, when I was going to church, I was a whopping, I don't know even how many pounds. I was like 260 something.
Damn. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um because all you do is, live for church, go have some good food, and that's your only like vice. And you can't have any outside vices. You don't smoke, you don't drink, you do all these things. You go to church on Sunday morning, and that's it. And you try to do it the best you can till you get back to church. So I started seeing the world in a different way. I started to see that, who are we? Like, who are we? Why are we judging all these other people? We don't like want people judging us. And then even with gay marriage, even that was one of the things that I was very like anti.
I
But I
remember
was like,
that.
who are we to say? And we had plenty of disagreements about that. And you were like, Keeks, no, this is no. And I would be
Just
like,
like,
what's
get it
Stephanie? Blah blah blah.
together.
But Emily, and I'm like, why was that such a thing? But I started to understand that, you also have to have your own sense of right and wrong,
Yeah.
right? Because going into a place where a man is telling you these things and they probably ain't even practicing it, they just there to get your dollars and ducats to make their life better. That's another story for another day. It's like a prostitute, a pimp and a prostitute kind of
Yeah.
situation when it comes to religion. And I'm just going to keep it real. Think about it. Who else
I
got you out there working and doing the good works and they standing up there just telling you what to do? This is what you do. And then bring the money to me. I don't know,
well,
girl. That
okay.
sounds it's very
I like
predatory.
that metaphor, but I liken it more to like a cult. You know what I mean? To me, I just
Okay.
feel like it's like a cult leader and then his followers.
A pimp and a prostitute.
Pippin and hoeing. Shit.
Pimping 101. I don't know. But then that's why I
Um,
started getting to see
yeah.
like, what do I think? What do I really think? Like, I know I have gay friends and like they're really friends to me. And like for them not to have the same thing that I have, like when I'm married, I have my family, I found somebody that I loved and I wanted to dedicate my life and live my life with them and grow old. Why shouldn't they be able to do the same thing?
Yeah.
And then I started switching up, even like with my abortion views, because I'm like, there are some times when you just got to do what you got to do.
Gotta do it. Yep.
And what is
Abortion is
wrong with
healthcare.
that?
Yep.
Like, because if they say the word is right and you're going to go to heaven and you're going to be judged by St. Peter and he's going to ask you, why, whatever. And you get judged that day. I think if God is who we think he is, I think he will understand like our reasons for stuff because we're
Hello.
literally talking about this in our last podcast. We're literally made in his image. So why wouldn't we
Yes.
have like some
Shame around
humility?
what we do
Should we
to.
be like
Yeah.
God-like? Should we be able to make
Yeah.
decisions based upon
Yes.
what is the best thing
Yes.
for
Well, listen,
everybody that's involved with us?
I have to say, and I'm going to use the word. I've been pretty liberal my whole life, and I'm just going to say the word liberal for context for those that may be
Hmm.
listening. That's not necessarily my political view, but I have always been do no harm, take no shit, and have as much fun as you possibly can.
Okay.
That's
Hmm.
always kind of been my metric, even since I was like a child. And so for me, very early on, I started to see church as like a performance of it all. And that's because, like you were saying, we grew up in the church. And by grow up, let me tell you how this is what my church life was until I left home for college. I literally went to church on Sundays. I went to church
Hmm.
on Wednesdays. And
Wednesday,
Sundays I went Sunday morning because there was, what was that
Sunday
called?
school.
There we go. Thank you. You had Sunday school where they had to teach you about God. And then you had the actual service where you got to hear about what God did. And then I went to prayer meeting, which was basically every Wednesday, maybe every other Wednesday, and you prayed for an hour or two.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then on Saturdays, and this alternated, I was either at choir practice, usher practice, or cleaning the church to make money. So in
Oh wait, you're
my,
forgetting one more.
which
Do you
other
know
one?
which the BTU?
Oh, was that on Tuesdays?
No, girl, that was on Sunday night.
What's it called? I am forgetting it. Baptist
Oh,
Training
Baptist
Union?
training. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I don't even. Ah! So yeah, so we were at that church all the
Spoon
time.
feeding you. Here you go.
All
Here's a
yes,
dose.
because
Get a
they were trying
dose.
to keep our hands and our minds very locked in. Um, But even then, I think I was able to kind of see it as a bit of a performance because for two reasons. A, the shit they were talking about in terms of like love and acceptance didn't jive with the other messaging they would talk about. And to me, that didn't jive about how I was being loved. So it was that, but
Oh.
it was also how I was moving through the world because of that, if that makes sense. So I wasn't, that love that they were talking about wasn't necessarily showing up in my life. And because that I was moving through the world in a different way, and the way in which I was moving through the world, I was finding a different type of love. Like there were people outside of my family, outside of my church that were just accepting me full stop.
Uh-huh.
And they were all from the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were people where I could just show up and be. I didn't have to put on my dress, put on my
Yeah.
stockings, do my hair,
Oh,
sit
talk
here,
about
put the
it. Talk
fan,
about it.
read the
Talk about it.
Bible, put your tithes in,
Mm.
sing, 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 sing. Welcome to your seat,
Thing.
sir. Like crazy town. So that's why I liken it to a cult. You know what I mean? But like,
Okay.
and that started happening early because I found community, frankly, I'm going to say it, in like a bunch of secular white girls.
Uh-huh.
You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? And so they were like, why are you going to church? Why do you go to church so much? And I'm like, I don't know why I go to church so
Yes.
much. And then I eventually got to the point, especially in my teenage years, where I would go out and party on Saturday night and then show up to church on Sunday. Like by then it was just like full performance, full like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
doing this because this is what you expect of me. But I don't abide by any of this bullshit. I have a lot of questions and y'all aren't giving me answers, so I'm just gonna stay in that space for now. And I
Yeah.
remember one time I was talking to my grandfather who was like a deacon for the church that we went to. And it was just a casual day and I'm walking past him, he's in his favorite chair and he goes, Stephanie, did you know so and so is here? I'm going to say the word Miami so you know who I'm talking about. But he goes, Stephanie, did you know Miami is gay?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I looked at him and I kind of paused and I was like, yeah. And his
Did.
face changed. His whole
Uh-huh.
face changed because I think he was expecting me to be like, oh my God, like just so grossed out. And I was just like, and his face
Girl,
changed.
did
He
we
sat
not?
with it and then we moved
Girl,
on,
if
you
we
know?
just be honest, like now that we're in like the new, I don't know, new age, whatever. But we know these people, these queer people.
Yeah.
They were part of the church.
Yep.
They were
Yep.
part of like, the Harlem Renaissance. They were a
Yep.
part of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And I was just reading the story about this lady and she was like some lady, she was a black lady. She was I think she was an author and she was queer. She was in a full-blown relationship with a woman and she wanted to have a baby. So that's the only reason why she was really trying to court people and she was trying to have like what is called now a lavender marriage. She was like, you give me something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll let them, I'll be your beard or
Mm-hmm.
whatever we can do, and we'll get through this world together. I'll do my thing over here, and you do your thing over here, and it's okay. And she would write these letters to this guy, and he was just like, later on when they say, "Did you know she was gay?" He was like, "Yeah, and so was I." Like we were both gay.
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
these
Let's
people
get to the problem.
exist, and so,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm like, that's the bad thing about the black church, and I'm sure in the white church too, because we do know that they will try to pray the gay away up in there,
They sure
send you
will.
off to camp, sleepy time camp, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they'll get you back into the right standing. But yeah, those are some things that we kind of you knew, like I knew Miami probably my whole life. So I know I've been in his life the whole time because I'm older than him. So always knew.
Yep.
I maybe didn't know what the name of it was when I was little, but I knew he was just different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
a lot of times like we get these people and they are the most creative types. They are the most
Yeah.
enlightened people. And I think it's because they have that duality. And
Yeah.
there's nothing
And
wrong with it.
because I think it's also because in a world, let me say this, that's one of the things about the church too, is that it insists upon conformity. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And for that, I mean, it's kind of like, and that's what I mean about those like two kind of messages, and already I was like, well, one of these is right. And if you're telling me two, like when I already started kind of thinking about it, because it's like I feel like the church really upholds strong, good looking, like, you know what I mean? They want this image of like godly people. And they'll
Mm-hmm.
they'll talk about how you're supposed to uplift the poor, etc. But in reality, they shun them, right?
They
So
do.
there's like, if you don't fit the box of what we deem a godly person looks like, you're othered. And I think that's also another reason why I was so it was so easy for me to kind of befriend the others, is because I definitely felt like an other. Like, I knew what that felt
Uh-huh.
like. And I've always, because of that, rooted for the underdog. And that's also kind of just been a lasting philosophy in my life. I really feel like if a whole bunch of people like some shit, it's never going to be for me. Do you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah, there
even
you go.
know why or
And I
how, but
think
it
I've kind of
immediately gives me the ick, you know?
I feel you on that. I feel you with that because I think the same thing. And I was thinking about this a couple of months ago. uh Somebody was asking me like, "Oh, like how was it with you in school?" And you already know my story. Like, I hated high school, to be honest. That was the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. But what I did like about the one thing that I did like about high school is that they had different social groups, and you can see the different social hierarchy. And with me, I always like felt like I was a people person. I felt like I was, the bridge over Trump water, if you will. But I never saw myself in one particular group of people. I would always like be able to talk to these people. These are the jocks. These are the cheerleaders. These are the shit kickers. These are the like the cholos. And I'm all up in there.
Same,
And
same,
then here's the
a
nerds over
thousand
here because they're
percent.
gonna have some interesting. And here's the band, and here's the choir, and they had all these social groups that were different. And so I would never sit in one group. I would always like diversify myself. I'm like, I'm gonna go sit over here today. I know they're gonna go over here to Mr. Treat. I know they're gonna go over here to Sonic. I know they're gonna go over here to
They all have
to
their little
Long
hot
John Silver's.
spots.
So
I
I
love
was
that.
always like talking to different people, and I feel
Hmm.
like that's what kind of gave me like made me who I am, because I just love people. I
I do
do.
too.
I love good
I do
people.
too.
Just don't love any
I
kind of people.
love
I
good
love good
people.
people, and I
Me
think
too.
all inherently people in the inside, they're good. They
Oh, I
want
don't
to be
believe that
good.
though.
Like
I
some,
don't
and
believe
I'm
that
just
either.
saying, I differentiate because some of them are just bad to the
They're
bone.
just some bad
But
people.
that's what I did
Hmm.
learn. I learned how to talk to different people. I learned to hold conversations with different people.
Well, you know
Uh,
what? What I think part of it is too is we grew up. In New Mexico, and already there's just this culture, like you said, there's a ranching culture, there's a Native American culture, there's a Latino culture, there's also a Southwestern culture, there's
yeah.
all these
So.
different cultures that kind of come together, and different groups that kind of align to each of them, and so you really were just a part of everything. But
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe also part of it is because as Black women in this space, there weren't a lot of us, so you kind of just had to be down with whatever, you know.
You did. You
Um,
did. You
when I
did
went
have to
to
be
college,
down with
this guy
whatever.
told me, he said to me, Stephanie, you have so many different types of friends, and I've always remembered that because it was such like it was like an honor to for me, for them to recognize that in me, because it's like, yeah, I do. I just love everyday people. I love good ass people, and I like the good bad people. You know that scale that they do, like chaotic evil, chaotic good. I
What is
There
it?
are some chaotic evil people that I'm down with, because I don't believe in good or bad, but I do believe in right or wrong. You know.
Okay, so Stephanie, like, so you're talking about like an agent of chaos? Are you talking about a provocateur? Can you clarify
A
a
little
little?
bit of all of that, because I feel like you have to have a little bit of that to ground you, right? Because
Mm,
if you only have what you think is good, that's just not how the universe works, right? It's yin and yang,
mm-hmm.
and so eventually some of that good will become bad. So you might as well just have the
Uh-huh.
bad out, right? Just know what
Mm-hmm.
it is, accept
And yeah,
it,
okay, and do your assessment.
yes, and carry on.
We should make that into a shirt. Do your assessment and carry on.
Carry on. shit and keep it moving. Because you got to know, you got to be able
it.
to recognize it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people see, and that's one thing that I am not. I am, unfortunately, very much a realist. I don't know that I always was, but as I've gotten older, I've become one. And it sucks because I feel like that's why I have such a hard time manifesting now. I really do.
You do?
I do because I'm such a realist now. Like I used to be able to be like delusional and be like, I don't know how. I didn't even question it. I would just say this is what I want. And then before you know it, my job's paying to relocate me to, you know what I mean? Like just like it just came very easy. And it comes so hard now. And I think it's because I'm too much of a realist now.
Girl, I know. I see where that can come in. Still got it. You still got it. You got some good stuff. Like
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
because I'm a witch. That's why.
You girl, we are witchy. A little bit witchy from the Southwest. Come for the aliens, stay for the enchiladas, and all the other shit between.
Food is one of a kind. We'll do a whole episode on New Mexico, maybe like the founding of it, things that are only found
yes,
there.
that'll be fun.
Again, because there's like ranchers there, we got some good meat, man.
We
good,
do.
fresh ass meat. You know what's crazy? Because I have a Costco membership, and I'm always trying to tell you to get one, and like you should. I get those steaks that are thick and chunky and yummy for an excellent price. But when I was in New Mexico, gosh, I can't remember. It was like a couple of years now. For July 4, we did the same. We went to Walmart actually and got some steaks to put on the grill. And the steaks, I promise you, Kiki, I felt like I was paying in like with bubble gum. It was so cheap. I was like, how much? I couldn't. It was like $8.
You like how much? Come again?
I couldn't believe it. I'm
what?
like, you motherfuckers! That's what small life affords you, or small town life affords you, right? I was shocked at the prices, and the thing about it is the beef had come from, 30 miles
right
away.
down the street,
right down the street. So that is the difference with our food. It's everything's fresh, grown
everything
fresh,
is fresh. It's fresh.
I love New Mexican cuisine.
I do too. I miss it so. But yeah, anything that is grown 30 miles out is definitely better than coming 5 days out. I mean, it just really does make sense.
We've been talking about Americans, of course, have been talking about the price of eggs. And one of the things that I discovered that is giving me and making me so grossed out is that apparently by the time that we get the eggs, they've already been around for like at least a week or longer. No, not even by the time we get them. By the time I think the stores get them.
The stores till they hit, yeah.
Till they hit shelves. And then we go and buy them like a week later. So we are getting weeks old eggs. I'm trying to find, I saw this post on TikTok, and it was this older lady who rolled up and she was just selling eggs. And, one of us was like, the game ain't changed.
Okay.
And that's what we're dealing now, because
the game ain't
I would love
changed.
to find an egg dealer.